Joining us on the DeMaio Report is Senator Ted Cruz, candidate for the Republican presidential nomination. He is here in San Diego campaigning for your support. Senator, thanks for swinging by.
Carl, it's great to be with you, and it's great to be back in the great state of California.
Well, we're going to be carrying your speech momentarily to San Diego during our 6 o'clock news. But let me start out first with the questions from over the weekend. Weekend and again this morning, Donald Trump and his campaign staff accused you of using, quote, Gestapo-like tactics to steal delegates. John Kasich today even came out and said your tactics in Michigan were, quote, were completely inappropriate. What's your response to these allegations?
Well, it is nothing but silliness. Donald Trump has a bizarre pattern that when he loses, he begins screaming and yelling, often cursing, and he insults and attacks and belittles anyone he can, and he raises absurd and bogus charges. Here's what's happened. In the last 3 weeks, there have been 11 elections all over the country. And in the last 3 weeks, we have beaten Donald Trump in all 11 elections. Donald is scared. He's rattled. He doesn't like losing. And when he loses, when the people vote against him, he lashes out at the people and he insults them. It started 3 weeks ago in the state of Utah, where we won 69% of the vote at the ballot box, a landslide victory, won all 40 of Utah's delegates. It then went on to North Dakota. In North Dakota, the state convention, they elected their delegates. Of the declared delegates, 18 are with us. Only one was with Donald Trump. Donald got very angry at that. Then the next election was Wisconsin. Wisconsin, just a few weeks ago, all the pundits were saying Wisconsin was a perfect state for Donald Trump. It's an upper Midwestern state. It's an industrial state. It's a blue-collar working-class state. The day before the election, Donald predicted a, quote, big victory in Wisconsin. Well, it turned out his prediction was false. We won yet another landslide victory in Wisconsin. We won 48% of the vote, beat Donald Trump by 13 points. And then this past week in Colorado. In Colorado, there were a total of 8 elections in the state of Colorado, 7 in each of the 7 congressional districts, and then 1 at their state convention. Those 8 elections collectively elected 34 delegates. And of those 34 delegates, we won all 34. Now, Donald is scared. He's angry that the people keep voting against him. And so what he does is he raises ridiculous charges. For some reason, Donald thinks that when he loses an election, when the people vote against him, that somehow the people are stealing the election. No, it's called democracy, and it's how we decide who will be the next president.
Okay, and all these rules have been established and in place for some time, so I sympathize with you on that front, but rules can also be changed. Rule 40 of the Republican convention currently states that in order for a candidate to have their name put in a nomination, they have to have won a majority of support in at least 8 of the delegations. Now, the rules are always changed before the start of each convention because we trail the rules from the prior convention. We always have an opportunity to refresh them. Now, your position, do you propose that we keep Rule 40 as it is, or are you open to allowing anyone to have their name put into nomination or some sort of other standard being set for getting your name into nomination?
Right. No, we should not be changing the rules. We need to follow the rules and allow the people to decide. These rules were put in place in 2012. Now, ironically enough, the rules were put in place by the Washington establishment in an effort to shut down and keep out the Ron Paul insurgency. Now, if you fast forward 4 years later, the rules are viewed as inconvenient for the Washington establishment, so they want to change the rules to try to parachute in some Washington deal maker. We shouldn't do that. We need to follow the rules. The rules say that the only way you can be nominated is if you have won 8 states. Only 2 candidates will meet that threshold, me and Donald Trump. And that means at the convention, if we have a contested convention, that I'll come in with a ton of delegates, Donald will come in with a ton of delegates. Those 2 names will be on the ballot, and the delegates will decide between us. And I'll tell you, if that happens, Carl, I believe we will be in a very, very strong position to earn the support of a majority of the delegates to win the nomination, uniting the party. And when we do that, we're going to beat Hillary Clinton in November. Donald Trump loses to Hillary Clinton by double digits. I beat Hillary Clinton. It's one of the big reasons so many Republicans are uniting behind our campaign.
All right, Senator, I want you to hold a moment. Coming up after news, we're done talking about internal rules of delegate selection. Senator, I want to ask you about the issues that actually matter to Californians and San Diegans. We continue one-on-one with Senator Ted Cruz next on News Radio 600 Kogo. This is Carl DeMaio on News Radio 600 Kogo, and we are live in Mission Valley, a rally that's expected to draw thousands of San Diegans. There are already 4,000 San Diegans that have signed up. Is about to get underway at 6 o'clock with a speech by Senator Ted Cruz. We are joined by Senator Ted Cruz for a one-on-one interview. Senator, San Diego is a military town, and tomorrow the Secretary of Navy will be visiting San Diego to promote the opening of combat roles to all women. Do you agree that we should allow women to serve in all combat roles in the military?
Well, I think our military should not be governed by political correctness. And we have seen in the last 7 years under the Obama administration an effort to open up, to treat the military as really a social experiment rather than as a war-fighting effort. I'll tell you, the Commandant of the Marine Corps and the Marines did a study, and it looked at putting women in a position of being in combat roles on the front line. Increased casualties, endangered both the women and the men. And it was not good for keeping safe our servicemen and women. We need to trust our military leadership to make that determination. We shouldn't be endangering our young fighting men and women. We need to be instead focusing on having the most effective military possible. And I would note, I think it is a profoundly dangerous development that we are seeing national leaders talking about drafting women into combat, forcing them to be in a combat position. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'm the father of two daughters, two little girls, and the idea that the federal government would forcibly conscript my daughters and put them in combat where they're fighting hand-to-hand with some crazed jihadist seeking to murder them, I think that makes no sense at all.
Okay, an issue of a social disagreement. We've got a number of religious freedom bills that have been proposed in state capitals around the country. A couple of them actually passed. John Kasich recently said if he were governor of North Carolina, he would not have signed into law their religious freedom bill. Two questions. First, would you encourage other states to take up religious freedom bills? And second, if a similar bill is passed at the federal level to the one in North Carolina while you are president, would you sign or veto it?
Well, let's start from first principles. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe we need to defend the Constitution of the United States, and we need to defend the Bill of Rights. For me, religious liberty is a core commitment. And, you know, Carl, it's sad. It used to be that religious liberty was a bipartisan commitment. A couple of decades ago, Republicans and Democrats, we might disagree on marginal tax rates, and we could have a debate on that. But when it came to protecting religious liberty, it used to be that Republicans and Democrats came together. You asked about a federal bill. I actually don't have to wonder about that hypothetically. A federal bill did come up and was passed in the 1990s. It was called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. It passed the United States Senate virtually unanimously, with virtually every Republican and virtually every Democrat voting for it. It was signed into law by a Democrat, Bill Clinton. This used to be non-controversial. Unfortunately, however, in today's modern Democratic Party, it has become so radicalized and extreme that today's Democratic Party has decided that supporting religious liberty is inconsistent with their partisan objectives. I think that's wrong. I have spent 20 years of my life fighting for religious liberty. And let me note, religious liberty protects all of us. It is the first freedom protected in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. It protects Christians. It protects Jews. It protects Muslims. It protects atheists. Every one of us has a right to live according to our faith, according to our conscience. And the fact that the modern Democratic Party refuses to recognize that and is at war with religious liberty and religious faith is one of the most troubling developments of the last 7 years of the Obama administration.
Okay, everyone looks at the president and they see them as a political leader, but they're also basically the chief operating officer or chief executive officer of the federal government. Ronald Reagan had the Grace Commission. Bill Clinton had reinventing government. George W. Bush had the president's management agenda. What is your management philosophy as president, and do you have ideas for reforming the federal government, such as outsourcing, the use of technology, performance audits? How would you approach that challenge?
Well, absolutely. A very good question. And I have rolled out a detailed agenda for shrinking the size of the federal government and turning around our deficit and debt. In particular, I've detailed over $500 billion in spending cuts that we should put in place. I'm the only candidate who's done this. None of the others are willing to specify what they would cut, because anytime you specify what you would cut, you open yourself up to political attacks. It's how we've gotten a $19 trillion debt, is you don't have leaders with the courage to specify what they'll cut. If you want to see our plan, you can find it at tedcruz.org, tedcruz.org. It details 5 major agencies that I intend to eliminate, including the Department of Education, the Department of Commerce, HUD, the Department of Energy, and the IRS. It details 25 specific federal programs that will be eliminated. It lays out a clear plan to shrink the federal workforce, and the way to do that is that we will fill, when vacancies occur, we will fill only 1 out of every 3 civilian vacancies. So as vacancies occur, we'll allow attrition to gradually but systematically shrink the size of the federal government. You mentioned the Grace Commission. Part of my spending plan is to reinstitute a commission like the Grace Commission, a bipartisan blue ribbon panel to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. The Grace Commission did an extraordinary job under Reagan, and we're going to do it again. And we're also going to fight for structural reform, including passing a strong balanced budget amendment and passing term limits to end the career politicians in both parties who contribute to the corruption and spending and waste and debt that is so jeopardizing the future of our kids and grandkids.
Yeah, a lot of folks I talk to say they don't know Ted Cruz, the man. They know the political figure. Let me talk about a couple personal questions. First, sure. What's your favorite Mexican food?
Favorite Mexican food, beef enchiladas. As a Texan, I grew up on Tex-Mex, and Heidi and I and the girls, we go out to Mexican food as often as possible, ideally at least once a week. You're gonna have to grab some when you're here in San Diego. How many pairs of boots do you own? How many pairs of boots do I own? Oh, probably 7 or 8. They're really 2 pairs of boots that I wear almost every day. I wear typically either a black ostrich Lucchese boots, which is what I wear with suits, or what I'm wearing right now, which is brown ostrich Lucchese. But I've got another half dozen in the closet of different skins that I'll occasionally wear.
All right, I know you're a fan of Star Wars. Who's your favorite character from Star Wars?
Hands down, Han Solo. I think Han Solo is the coolest character in all of cinema, I will say this: the latest Star Wars movie. There is an image in that movie, and I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but which just about brought tears to my eyes and was an image that will leave trauma forever.
Favorite band?
Favorite band? I grew up listening to classic rock, listening to groups like The Who and the Kinks and Genesis. And then as I got older, my music tastes have shifted to country music. And so I would say for a favorite now, maybe George Strait.
Real quick, if you could have lunch with any historic figure, past or present, who would it be?
Boy, that's a hard question. Look, obviously, if you could only pick one, and this is a little unfair, but to sit down with Jesus in person would be incredible. Looking at other leaders, Winston Churchill would be truly extraordinary. Reagan and Lincoln would be very near the top of the list, and for Teddy Roosevelt would be amazing, and Babe Ruth would be pretty phenomenal as well.
All right, Ted Cruz, Senator, running for the nomination on the Republican side for U.S. President. We appreciate your time, and we will be carrying your speech, which is supposed to start momentarily here in San Diego, live here on KOGO, News Radio 600 KOGO, during the 6 o'clock hour. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Well, Carl, thank you very much, and I would encourage folks, if you're in San Diego and free, come join us at 6 o'clock. It's at the Town & Country Resort, and thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Senator Cruz.